many of us certainly, believe that we don't have anything to offer. We don't think that we bring anything to the table of value. So, of course, we fail to begin to approach or put whatever it is that's been given to us out there. And there's a story in scripture, and Jesus tells about this very wealthy man goes on a sabbatical. But before he goes on to the sabbatical, what transpires is that he gives three of his executives authority over his multiple businesses. And so one he gives like one business, the other one he gives like two businesses, and the other one he gives like five businesses, depending upon their skill sets. And so he goes away, comes back, and he gives an account. He says, "Okay, you guys have been running my business for the last year or so. How have things been going?" The one that he gave two businesses to, he said, "Well, I doubled, the two businesses that you gave me. Now I got four businesses." And then the one that he gave five businesses to, he said, "I doubled the five businesses. Now I have 10 business." And he told both of them, "Well done, great, executives. I'm going to give you more now since you've handled those." But one tried to be shrewd, and he said, "I knew what kind of man you were, and I didn't want to squander the business that you gave me. So what I ended up doing was taking that business and just kind of letting it just stay where it was. I didn't make any investments or anything like that. I just basically kept the business where it was." And he basically terminated that when he said, "Listen, you're lazy." He said, "Even if you had done the basic things as far as investing in the business and, so forth," he said, "at least I would have gotten a return on my business." He said, "But you didn't do anything, but basically kept it running." Why does this apply to us? Because each one of us has what we call talents. And this is where the term, the talents, the gifts of the talents, we have these skill sets and so forth. And even if your talent is what you've been through, see, you've discovered something in your journey that you've gone through that not everybody's gone through, or even if they've gone through it, they didn't figure out how to navigate it. But in your going through it, you learn certain things. And I often say this, that your pain point is often your pay point. The thing that you've discovered in the time of pain and the struggles and so forth, that's the thing that often turns into your six-figure, seven-figure, eight-figure, nine-figure business when you begin to put it out there. But most of us say, "Well, I don't have anything that anybody wants, and I don't have anything to offer." And it's just not so. So today we're going to be talking about what's in your hand. And there's two stories. One was the widow that lost everything, and her sons were about ready to be thrown in jail. And the prophet Elijah said to her, "What's in your house?" Same thing. What are you holding within you? What are those gifts, those talents, those abilities that we all have something? Absolutely. Sam was just saying we all have something. What are those gifts and those abilities? Now, so what we're going to do today is talk about how to bring those gifts, those talents, those abilities out so that you can begin to utilize them. I think that one of the biggest things that hold us back, that keeps us operating from a place of smallness, is worrying about what other small minds are going to think about what we're doing. So we let people that aren't doing anything, that aren't changing the world, that are not impacting anything and often these people we don't even know. They're people online, we let these people dictate to us how big, how large we can be. And anytime we show up, then of course we're letting them discourage us. And this is why the master teacher would often say, when you're on the way to your manifestation, that thing that you seek, tell nobody. Because he knows that in the process, as you're going through the process, and you tell somebody, "Good to see you also, Andrew," as you're in the process of making that transformation, when you tell family and friends, for example, they're going to, say some sly words. They're going to kind of behind the scene put you down, or even if they don't say anything to you directly, they may talk to other family members. "Oh, did you see what such and such did? And did you see, what he called himself or what she called herself? Do you see what she has the audacity to believe that she can do?" So master teacher said this, we're going to eliminate all of that. Tell no one on your way to your manifestation. Wait till you get there. And point in case, when John the Baptist had baptized the master teacher and the Spirit came upon him, he went out and started teaching. And people wanted to remind him of who he used to be. But see, he had already locked into his identity. So once you lock into your identity, good to see you, Violet. Once you lock into your identity, then it's okay to put it out there because now you're operating from that. But as you're on the way and as you're trying to figure things out, stay quiet. Don't tell everybody because not everybody can partake of what it is that you have to offer. And this is why they say, don't cast your pearls before swine. Now, and this is not to belittle the person, it's an allegory. You know, people at a lower level of consciousness, they might as well be swine of the earth. They're bottom feeders. And their only goal, good to have you, their only goal is to keep you where they're at. Because see, you act as a reminder of who they could be. And they don't want that reminder. So just be mindful when you're on the way to your manifestation, tell no person. So let's get into these 10 things that we want to talk about today. I'm going to use, of course, an acrostic. I try to use acrostics when possible. Sometimes I won't, but most of the time I try to use acrostics because I want you to have a format of something easily to remember. So this is why I use acrostics. But this one today is going to be the talents. So in using the talents, we're going to, well, Violet, you have at least one friend. You got to communicate with them, though. So you got to basically use these talents to basically transform your own inner conversation, your own life. So let's go and talk about it. The first one in the talents acronym is trust, which you've been given. And I kind of stated this earlier, and Sam stated it also. We've all been given something. Matter of fact, most of us have multiple gifts and talents. But let me say this. I was an engineer for a Fortune 10 company. And a lot of times when I managed a particular network and in managing that multi-million-dollar network, problems would come up. Now, early on when those problems would come up, because I was still learning skill sets, I would panic. But once I got comfortable and understood that to every problem, if it's truly a problem, there's a solution. Once I started interacting with those challenges from a way, not knowing what the solution was, but just believing that there was a solution and that I would figure it out. 100% of the time, I never left one of those issues, as it were, without a solution. They always got resolved because I took this into the challenge. I don't know what the fix is at this moment, but I know that there is a fix. Your life has been that. Your life has been a series of fixes. Now, what do I mean by that? You've had challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge. Now, those challenges are really opportunities. The problem is we have this thing called terminal uniqueness. We think that we're the only ones going through the things that we've faced. So because of that, we say, well, I fixed this, I've done this, and I've done all this, and all this stuff I've done, and I'm the only one that's going through it. So it doesn't really apply. That's not true. We're called the one God made up of many, Elohim. This means that the things, the challenges that you face, the majority of people face in one variation or another, but they have similar challenges. So as you begin to present your solutions to the world, what happens is you find like-minded audiences that says, oh, I've had the same issue. Wow, thank you. And I can go on and on and on how this applied to my own life. You know, there's people that put videos out there on how to repair a car or how to repair a refrigerator or how to do this, how to do that. And I go out and I simply watch one of those videos on something that I'm trying to resolve. And now I've saved myself tens of thousands of dollars because I didn't have to go to a mechanic or I didn't have to call somebody into my home. You have many talents and gifts like this just by virtue of what you've gone through in your own life. As you begin sharing your truth. Don't worry about how it applies to anybody else. You share your truth. As you share your truth, what you're going to discover is that there's somebody out there that needs what it is that you discovered. And when you do that often enough, you're going to discover your audience. And because you've given them so much value, they're going to want personal time with you. And they're going to say, how can we compensate you to go deeper? But you got to show up. You can't. So many people, I see great videos with some of you creators out there, because of course, when you make a comment or whatever, I go out and look at your channel and so forth, and I see these wonderful videos, but I see 2 videos done in the last 5 years. And you're wondering why you only got 5 subscribers. They can't trust that you're going to show up. So because they can't trust that you're going to show up, they go and find somebody else that may not be as talented as you are, but they keep showing up. So first and foremost, realize that you have a gift, you got a talent, and often that gift, that talent shows up by way of your adversity, the things that you've gone through, your pain points. And again, I'll say it this way, your pain point is often your pay point. Okay, so the next one, honor your portion. See, everybody has different measures, different talents. Don't compare yourself with Elon Musk, for example. So, well, Elon's you're doing it the wrong way. God, infinite spirit, infinite intelligence wants to use you uniquely. And Elon Musk's audience isn't your audience. There's people that want to identify at your level, where you're at. So I talked last week about the manna principle. Each one's given according to his or her abilities. Even when we talk about the parable of the talents, one was given 1 organization, the other one was given 2 organizations, the third was given 5 organizations. So everyone's given to his or her unique abilities. Now, the funny thing is, did you notice what happened in the story? And for those who missed it, you can go back. But did you notice what happened in the story? When the talents were given out, each one doubled except the one that buried his talent. Each one was given according to their ability, but each one that put it to use doubled. So my whole point to you is you're not going to stay where you're at. When you begin utilizing those talents, they're going to be multiplied. You got to understand where you're at the moment. You just start in faith where you're at the moment and showing up. Your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your skill sets are going to multiply. I was talking to a peer of mine, and she was telling me about one of her clients. And about a year ago, when he started working with her, she has a Roku network. And she basically platforms different people in their skill sets, their talents, and so forth, and they show up. So this gentleman, I believe, was like an athlete or whatever, but he wanted to reach his audience, was very shy starting out. And being shy, as Violet just stated, we got to begin to understand ourselves. But he was very shy in starting out, but he kept showing up, and he's been consistent for like the last year. People often they'll put this out there and they'll say, if you post a video every day for a year, at the end of that year, you'll never have to work another day in your life. Now, what that doesn't mean is because you've posted all these videos that all of a sudden you're going to become wealthy. It's what you become. Jim Rohn used to say, it's not making $1 million being the goal. He said, but it's what accomplishing that goal, the person that you become in making the $1 million, that's important. So the $1 million isn't the goal. Once you learn how to make $1 million, for example, then you can multiply that. And so now you become more valuable because I know how to do this. I became more valuable to my organization that I was working for because of the problems that I was able to solve for them. And so for many people, I became the go-to person. When their network went down, they would almost call me directly. We would have to set up a conference call. We'd have to get all the right people online. And we would resolve the issue. Now, it wasn't that I was doing it all by myself. It was me pulling and bringing the right team members in to solve the problem. Don't feel like you got to do this on your own, but I promise you, when you begin to show up, you're going to attract your audience. And within that audience, there are going to be people that say, how can I serve you? Because you've so blessed them by what it is that you're offering that they want to be a part of what it is that you're doing. So don't feel like you got to do this alone. Master Teacher found him 12 apostles, 12 disciples to help him carry out the work because he realized that he couldn't do it on his own. So just be mindful. You don't have to do this alone, but you do have to show up, and you have to show up consistently. So honor your portion. Don't compare yourself with other people. You've been uniquely created, designed to do what only you can do and create. So just be mindful. Nobody can do it like you, what you've been called to do. Nobody. Okay, so the E in the talents acrostic. Examine what comes naturally. There's a caveat to this in examining what comes naturally. Because it comes naturally, we think that everybody can do what it is that we do. That's the biggest lie that we've ever created for ourselves. What you're going to find, whatever it is that you know how to do, probably, and I'm being conservative here, 90% of the population don't know how to do what you do. This is why we have 8 billion people, and each one of them has their own unique calling. Even though there may be other people doing exactly what they do, nobody can do it exactly like you. But the truth of the matter is the skill sets that you have, most people don't even know how to do it. So we take certain things for granted. One of my sons is in heating and air. And he's been doing it for like, almost 20 years now. And the thing is, he gets in there and he does his little things and it takes just a few seconds. And he's like, I don't know why people are paying me to do this. Well, primarily because they don't know how to do it. And I give him an analogy. I say, listen, I do things for you like on the computer. Now, I do these things without even thinking about it. And in my mind's eye, everybody should know how to do them, but they don't. I said, that's the same analogy. I said, you've been tested over the last 20 years of how to service heating and air and so forth. I said, that's your expertise. The reason why people are going to pay you individually is because of what you've learned on your individual journey. And what you're doing is saving them money, you're saving them time, or you're giving them status. So it may be that you're saving them time because they don't have the time to figure out what it is that you know. You may save them a boatload of money, or now because of what they've learned from you, they've escalated their own status in society. So while it was saying it's important for us to know how to change our paradigm, and let me add even to that comment, you'd be surprised how most people don't know, because we've been so programmed, indoctrinated for the last umpteen years that we're fixed, that nothing changes, that who you are is who you are. And we were used to be told that, you can't increase your IQ, that you couldn't increase creativity. All these things were to keep you locked into a system. Now you're not stuck, but that's what we were told. So it's easy to say, change your mind, change your world, but it's harder to do when you believe that your mind is fixed, that your identity is fixed. This is just who I am. This is my family background. This is my color. This is where I grew up. You understand what I'm saying? When you believe, and you really get it when you've been indoctrinated with religious systems, because these things go so deep that we think that that's who we are. And they've put tools in place to make you feel guilty about even making a change. So when you start questioning, oh, that's demonic, that's devil, that's Satan, those are catchphrases to keep you locked into the ideology, the programming that they've given you. But understand this. They said that about the master teacher. They also said it about Capernaum, Socrates, and all the great teachers that have gone on before you. You got to understand these are tools to keep you locked in place. So don't buy, don't believe the hype. That's Public Enemy a long time ago. My whole point is don't believe it. You're not fixed. I often say that you're being reborn every moment of the day. If you hear something that I said and you say, I never thought about it like that, you were reborn. You've become somebody else because now you have a different ideal that you didn't have before, and it's changing the whole dynamics of who you are. So you're not even who you were a moment ago simply by taking on a new ideal, a new concept, a new belief system. You're not the same person. Matter of fact, biologically, some people say, every 11 months, some people say longer, some people say shorter, but you're not even the same person you were this time last year. You've been reborn, as it were. Your body, your structure, everything's been recreated. Your cells are constantly, you're not fixed. We believe that we're fixed. We believe that this is the same hand, these are the same fingers. So the question is, when we're dealing with, let's say, debilitating diseases, for example, why do we keep carrying it into our future? We do it because we believe that we're fixed and that these things don't change and this is just who I am. This disease is just what I have. And you understand what I'm saying? I'm not being critical. I've dealt with some things myself and had to see them through. I had to move through those things. So I'm human just like you. The same ailments that you face, I face. I just try not to stay there. So let's move forward. So the T in the talents, train your gift. Father was saying we're supreme beings. And like I say often, we're not the supreme being, but we're of the supreme being. So we're creative beings, as Violet just stated. So train your gift. Now, most of us believe because we have a gift or I have the gift of speaking. So we say because I have the gift, I don't have to do anything. I can just get up and speak. The great orators, the Winston Churchill, the Abe Lincolns, the Martin Luther Kings, and so forth, these people had gifts beyond the masses. They were like the 1%. Mark Twain, they were like the 1%. Billy Sunday, preacher, they were like the 1%. In our time, Billy Graham, again, they were like the 1%. What am I saying to you? Even with those gifts and those talents, they trained themselves. They worked on their gift. They worked on their talents. For you guys that have these gifts and these talents, I just know how to make money. But you don't sit there and you don't study. You don't. Somebody asked, and I like using this analogy because it applies. How can I become like Neville Goddard as far as with his knowledge of scripture and so forth? And I simply say, spend 8 to 10 hours a day of your free time in the Word, studying the Word. Same with Dr. Joseph Murphy, Reverend Ike. They didn't just take somebody else's authority on scripture. They studied for themselves to show themselves approved, and then they were given their own divine revelation. I was talking to somebody out of the UK, a brother of mine, and I say brother of different mothers, same Father Spirit. And he was telling me that he was continuously listening to, Mr. Lindo's 4 CDs. And he was listening to our talks, and he was just pouring it into himself over and over and over again. And I told him this. Absolutely. Sam was just saying that your gifts and your talents will make room for you. You got to believe that. As you're sitting there practicing, and so I see, like Neville, like Dr. Joseph Murphy, they saw themselves speaking before masses of people, even though when they were speaking, they were in front of an empty audience. Neville tells the story about standing on an empty lot, and the grandfather told his children, this used to be an empty lot, but I saw within my imagination this being this grand building. Now, Neville Goddard's family has a Violet was saying we're badasses. We are. And so now Neville Goddard's family has a billion-dollar empire, but it started standing on that empty lot. So when you're training your gifts and your talents, what's happening is you're getting educated, you're improving, you're doing what you need. Sam said, your gifts and your talents would make room for you. But don't think that that's just going to magically happen. It happens as we show up and we show out. As we continue to do that, all of a sudden, what's going to happen is somebody's going to notice us. And then somebody else is going to notice. And pretty soon, you're going to create this snowball effect. But understand this, in most cases, this doesn't happen overnight. Many times you see a person that's an overnight success. And that overnight success, as Malcolm Gladwell would often say, spent their 10,000 hours becoming that overnight success. The Beatles, before they became the Beatles, they sucked. And I say they were an ordinary pub band. They didn't suck. They were okay. Otherwise, people wouldn't have been listening to them. But after 5-10 years of performing, they got into their groove. And all of a sudden, these young kids from Liverpool became seemingly this overnight success. But they went through many failures in multiple performances to become what we call the Beatles, the phenomenon today. That didn't just happen. If the Beatles just showed up and started playing together one time, and they said, we're going to be this overnight success, and that was the only time they played, we would not have heard from the Beatles. And this is what most creators do. They start something. They show up 1 or 2 times. They say this stuff doesn't work. And it's like, well, nobody ever supported me. You didn't show up. I go back to what Sam says. Your gifts, your talents will make room for you, but you got to show up. And Violet, you're absolutely correct. Greatness is in our DNA, but we have to activate it. We can't sit on our laurels, as it were, and say, well, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. And we don't do anything about it, so the world never discovers our greatness. Good to see you. And the world never discovers our greatness because we haven't shown it. Understand this. There are people looking for you right now. They're looking for the solutions that you have. But that one video that you put out there 5 years ago, nobody can find it because it gets buried so deep because you haven't shown up. The algorithm works as such for the most part. The more we show up, the more that they reward us, the more it rewards us by showing us to more people. But you can't, even if that video that you made 5 years ago got 1 million views, because you haven't done anything with that, it goes dormant. So you have to show up. So yes, greatness is in each one of us, 8 billion plus. But if the people that are blessed by their greatness are those who show up and show out and then give it out. Okay, so train your gift. Next, and this is why most of us don't move forward. The A in the talents acrostic, act despite fear. Someone says fear is feel the fear and do it anyway. Just feel the fear, false evidence, feeling, appearing real, and do it anyway. The thing that I think it was Napoleon Hill said, the thing that you're going to discover when you take action on that fear is the thing that you fear will subside. Often, the story that we paint in our mind about what's going to happen or what people are going to say or what people are going to think is far greater in our minds than it is in reality. The truth of the matter is, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Most people don't care. That's the truth. Most people don't care. They don't care about you. They're too busy focusing on their own life to be concerned about you or whatever you're putting out there. So when you initially start showing up until you start blowing up, you're not even going to get trolls early on. You can know that you're making some type of impact when people start trolling you. One family started talking about you. You could tell when Jesus made an impact. 'Cause this family was even saying, well, if you were really who you say you are, you would go amongst the people and show yourself. When you start getting hate speech, trolling, you can know at that moment that you're making an impact. If nobody's talking about you, if everybody's agreeing with what you say, you may want to question what it is that you're saying. Because if you're saying something of significance, it's almost impossible that trolls don't show up. I know that some of the stuff I teach, I'm not even pointing you to me. Some teachers say, well, I'm so great and all. It's not about me, it's about you. And so as I'm telling you how great you are, that you're God's, I get people showing up. How dare you say that we're God's? I like my small existence, and they're fighting for their limitations. But I'm not. You're a false prophet. You're Satan. You're demonic. You're going to burn in the lake of hell. And the only thing I'm telling you is how powerful you are. But that tells you and shows you how deep the programming is. And believe me, it is programming. And the programming is to keep you as a cog in the system where they can control you. And one of the greatest tools of control is religion. I'm a spiritual person. I've come from a religious background. I love the divine in me. I love the divine in you. But one of the greatest tools used to control you is religion, then education, then government, then the medical community. But all these things are to keep you small. And my only goal is to tell you that you're bigger, greater than you ever know. You're bigger, greater than you ever know. Thank you for the confirmation. I appreciate you. Okay, so let's move forward. I want to make sure we get all this stuff in. Violet was saying, and I'll go on and say her point because she's absolutely correct. She said, Jesus, and again, this is going to rub religious folks the wrong way, but I'm going to say it anyway, because they'll probably not be listening to this show anyway. She says, Jesus has nothing to do with religion. Matter of fact, I'll go a step further. Jesus, Socrates, and so many others were killed because of religion. That's the truth. So people say, I just can't wait till Jesus come back. Those same people, that spirit that rests upon those people to say they can't wait till Jesus came back. If the real Jesus, please stand up, came back, they would crucify him all over again. Now, it may not be a cross, but it would be some other vehicle, but they would kill him, her, all over again, because Jesus would not look like the religious version that the church has painted. But that version that the church has created is to keep you under their thumb, to keep you being controlled by their system of religion. Most aspects of religion, even those that started off with good intention, end up trying to control you. It's funny, I was looking at my post because I had posted something out there, and a young man had said something. He said, why don't you have a beard that God commanded you to have? And so I didn't laugh at his post, but I said, that's not what God called me to do. So, and apparently he did not know a lot about me, because he would have known that was the wrong thing to say to me. I'm not bound by anybody's religion as much as possible. Now, I'm sure that there's those things, those belief systems that I do hold that may have, and as much as I would love to be able to read that still, it's so much. You give me too much. And because you're new, let me go on and clarify what I mean by that. My friend just pops up. Jesus was a person who was, or just a metaphor. The question is, was Jesus a person or a metaphor? Now, I'm going back to you still so that you can understand what I'm meaning about too much. They gave me a sentence. Because YouTube gives me literally less than a second to read what pops up on the screen, you got to say whatever it is. You got to think to yourself, how can I say this so I can give this to Coach? Like Violet just said, Jesus was higher consciousness. And that, let me say this for the person that needs Jesus to be a person. Allow Jesus to be a person for you. My goal Mr. Lindo's goal is not to tell you what to believe. Violet said Jesus was higher consciousness. I'm in agreement with that. But I'm not opposed to Jesus being a person. Neville was totally, absolutely against Jesus being a person. There is no Jesus outside. That's what I agree with. Still just said, and I'm not going to try to say the whole thing, still just said that Jesus is the person or the persona within you. As kind of what Violet was saying, Jesus is conscious. But for the person, understand this, for the person that needs Jesus to be a person, allow Jesus to be a person for you. It's okay. And I was going to say that for Mr. Lindo and I, our goal is not to tell you what to think. This goal, I don't care if you're atheist, if you're a witch, I don't care what your religious preferences are. I have my own, and my goal is not to teach. I use scripture as a tool to teach, but I'm not trying to indoctrinate. I'm not trying to proselyte. I'm just you. As I tell anyone, if I was Buddhist, I would be like Alan Watts. I would be teaching Buddhism as a means of teaching. If I was Muslim, I would be using the Quran. Whatever my faith was, I would be using that as a means to teach you. But my goal is not indoctrination. You don't have to become a believer or anything like that. I like to say this, that from Genesis to Revelation, psychological is a psychological drama. It's your story being told. And so with that being said, I take and show who you are by way of the metaphors, the parables, the stories of Scripture, so that you can identify who it is that you are as a spiritual being, not a religious being. So still, I think that you kind of answered your own question, and I appreciate that you came back and gave me a sentence. Thank you. So again, I'm not discounting for anyone. If you believe that Jesus is a physical person that lived and breathed, hold on to that. If you believe that Jesus is coming back and correcting the world, hold on to that. My goal is not to tell you what to believe, but that you believe. And as you believe, you will see the evidence of that belief or those beliefs. So let's move forward. So we're still in the talents acrostic. L in talents stands for launch. Whatever it is that you've been called to do, I told my brother recently, and he said he loved it. I said, whatever it is, whatever it is that you've been called to do it now. We keep assuming that we have more time than we do. And for us that believe that, I love you too. Brother from East Texas, I love you too. And I appreciate your post because you've sent me love by way of post and so forth. Thank you. And I love you too. So I was talking to my brother. I'm amazed. I could tell this is kind of some divine energy going on because I can come back and stay on track. Now, if I'm just doing my normal everyday thing and I'm talking to my spouse, for example, and something comes on TV or some distraction comes in the house or the dog starts barking, I'm like, I can't remember what I was thinking about. You guys will put your questions out there, you make your comments, and I'll get right back on track. So I just appreciate that, it's meant for you to hear this. So launch with small steps. You have gifts and talents, so we've already covered that. Start small. Often, I've worked with a couple of clients, and one young lady, she was a photographer, and she would do her partner's work. And so he's out there doing fitness and real estate. He's this phenomenal guy anyway, but he's out there doing all this stuff. And she was, filming him and, doing the categories and just making him beautiful, making him great. And she said, what about me? So we had a conversation and I said, why don't you do your aspect of photography and begin to showcase what happens behind the scene? And it opened up a whole new world for her. So not only was she doing his thing, she had purpose because she was doing her thing and she was doing it with love and passion. She had gave me this wonderful testimony using her skill sets. It was probably one of the most beautiful testimonies as far as cinematography and everything. She went over and above. My whole point to you is start where you're at, but you got to start. With AI, I was thinking about a friend of mine, a young lady I used to see many years ago, and one thing that she always wanted to do was do children's books. And I've often wondered, did she ever pursue the dream of doing children's book? One of my other clients had no idea how to use AI or anything. And so I introduced her at that point to ChatGPT. And over the course of the 3 days that we were doing this challenge, she created a children's book. And I want to reach out to her and say, listen, the tools that you had, a year or two ago, they're so advanced now that her challenge was her animation. Because she was pulling clip art from all these different places, it wasn't a steady flow. Now you can get on one platform like Copilot. You can plug in, let's say I want to do a children's book, have Copilot come up with an animation, and what it will do consistently is create the same type of animation throughout your story. So now you got a children's book that you can upload on YouTube, sell to children, and make a buttload of money. Make a lot of money. Make money, period. There's people like good content. So if you're going to create a wonderful book for their children and you begin to let people know that it's out there, it's going to sell itself by you letting them know that it's out there. I'm just saying there's so many ways. So launch with small steps, take baby steps, but take steps in the direction of who it is that you want to be, do, or have. Don't keep putting it off. And somebody had a post and she said, yesterday I was 19, today I'm 52. Guys, it goes that fast. I don't care what, most of you already know this because some of you are of the age, so you know. But for you folks that are young and you think that you had all the time in the world, yesterday I was 18, 19 years old, just joined the Marine Corps. And here some umpteen years later, I'm sitting here speaking to you, but it goes that fast. Just take my word for it. Start in baby steps in the direction of where it is that you want to be, do, or have. Okay, so launch with small steps. E in the talents acrostic, empower others. I'm working on a course now, and I'm still deciding what it's going to be called. But the course is so powerful because it's based off of the works of a gentleman by the name of Wallace D. Wattles. His great book that blew up after he had passed was The Science of Getting Rich. He had smaller books that didn't really take off, but they're just as powerful. So I compiled those books into a book called The Millionaire Master Key. And I said, when I'm looking at putting this program together, I want to make, in my lifetime, 1,000 millionaires. So I want to create the vehicle that people can take what it is that I'm offering them, giving them, and create 1,000 millionaires. That'd make $1 billion. Now, the benefit of doing that, so I'm asking you to show up and ask yourself when you're showing up for your audience, how can I be a blessing to them? How can I change their life? How can I impact their life? Start with that, not how much it's going to make me or, how's it going to benefit me? That's the wrong question. When you ask, how can I benefit them? How can I change their life? How can I impact them? The other stuff, ancient text says, give, and it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will people, men, women, children, pour into your lives? Kylie Jenner's, like the Kardashians or not, it doesn't matter. I want you to understand the point. Less than the age of 19, I guess she was about 18 at that time, she was impacting young ladies by talking about beauty, skincare, and so forth. She launched a brand and became a billionaire. She found out how she could serve. Everybody says, just keep thinking abundance, thinking abundance. If you think abundance without service, it's a pipe dream. It's wishful thinking. It will never go anywhere. Now, can you think abundance and possibly hit a lottery win or come across a good fortune? Yeah, but it won't last because you never learned how to take and give. So it's given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will people give to you? Can you come into an inheritance? Yeah, but you'll probably go through it unless you're very conservative with it. Absolutely. Sam was saying, and how many things? All these things should be added to you. All these things. Give and it should be given to you. So, let me say this, and speaking on what Sam just stated. prosperity, abundance, the law of sowing and reaping. It's not based off of faith, and I mean religious faith. It's not based off of morality. An unmoral person who believes that they can be wealthy has every chance of being wealthy as a moral person or a righteous person has. Money doesn't care who uses it. Money is no respecter. Says somebody else is no respecter of person, but money is no respecter of person. So when you hold the vibration, good, bad, or indifferent, Violet was saying, leaving people with the impression of increase. That almost sounds like Wallace D. Wattles. I don't know if you know about Wallace D. Wattles, but that sounds exactly like one of his quotes. But anyway, money is no respecter of person. So why am I saying this? It kind of goes back to what Violet just stated. Leaving people with the impression of abundance or increase. When you hold the vibration that I can be abundant, no matter where you're at the moment, money doesn't care that you're broke, busted, and disgusted at the moment. What money does do and does care about is that you can get into the vibration that I can be wealthy, that I am wealthy, that I'm operating from a wealth mindset. What's going to happen? I promise you, when you start holding that ideology, when you start holding that mindset, ideals are going to start flooding you. So many ideals. It says, test me herewith and see if I will not open the windows, the floodgates of heaven, the mind of men and women, that I would not open up the floodgates of the mind of men and women and pour you out such a blessing of ideals that there will not be room enough to store. You would have so many ideals that you won't know what to do with them. Your biggest job at that point is determining which ideal you're going to implement and stick with. Test me herewith. When you start operating, now the other thing that you can't do, you can't just set on them. How many of you have thought about something, said, man, that'd be a great idea. And months pass, a year pass, maybe a couple years pass. You see your ideal in the store. You see your ideal online. I was thinking, a friend of mine's years ago, we had a conversation. We went out to lunch, and we had been friends since elementary schools, but he moved to Georgia. Matter of fact, that's how I initially moved to Georgia, because he gave me an invitation. But anyway, we had lunch years ago. And he says, I got this concept and I want to share it with you. He says, I have a concept of taking videos and put them into kiosks and then letting people be able to go to get those kiosks and then mailing them back. He did nothing with them. But there was a company called Redbox. And Redbox implemented that exact same ideal that my friend was talking about. Why am I saying this? The universe is a collective. God is a collective. That's what we call it, the Elohim, the one made up of many. If you hold a vibration, a thought, long enough and strong enough, understand this. If you have it, there may be multiple other people that have that same idea, that same concept. Now, it may vary, it may look slightly different, but they hold the same, because that ideal is not just given to you. Why do I say this? You're to act upon what's being given to you. Now, even if there's 10,000 other people doing exactly what it is that you do, nobody can do it just like you. There's only one you. You bring your own unique experiences into the mix, and that's what makes it uniquely yours. There's a story years ago, and there was a gentleman, his name was Elijah Gray. Elijah had this wonderful patent, so he took it to the patent office, but for some reason he got delayed. And in his delay, there was a person that beat him to the patent offices. The person you may know is Graham Bell. We call, in the United States, we have the Bell telephone system. If it wasn't for Graham Bell beating out Elijah Gray with the same invention, we may be calling the telephones today the Gray system, the Gray phones. but today we call, we got Bell technology and all this other based off of Graham Bell, simply because he acted first and got his patent to the patent office before Elijah Gray. What is that ideal, that concept that you're setting on, and you're just waiting on the perfect time? Act now. Take a baby step towards the direction. You may not be able to afford a patent right now, but what small thing can you do, drawing it up and just getting a copyright on it? What small thing can you do to get that business, that ideal, that concept started? Start that cleaning business, get a business card, begin to pass it out. What small thing can you do to get that thing started? Don't bury your talents in the ground. I think one of the biggest regrets that we'll have on our deathbed, and I know this because of studies, but is us not acting and doing what it is that we knew to do, and we knew that it would change our lives. Act now on the thing the thing that I don't want any of you to have, and the thing that I purpose not to have in my own life, are regrets. I try to do the things that have been placed on my heart. Whether they succeed or they fail, at least I have the experience. Now, understand this about so-called failure. Even if you fail in an endeavor, the things that you learn from that supposed failure can be more valuable. I saved a young lady the other day $2,000 simply because of something that I had processed, and she was stuck there. And so we had this conversation. I said, oh, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to. And it lifted this whole burden off of her shoulders. And all of a sudden, she wasn't investing that money. She was able to invest the money towards her business venture that she was more passionate about. This is how your life experience. You call that thing failure, but it may be that thing. No, you don't want to do that. I did that. You're telling them, no, you don't want to do it that. I did that. And when I did that, these are the results. You don't want to do it that. No, go about it and do it that way. You may have just saved them tens of thousands of dollars. You don't think they'll pay you for that? Now, you think that just that one person has that problem. Multiply that times 1,000, 10,000 people that have that exact same problem. If you can save me $10,000, I would pay you $1,000 for that. Certainly $199, $197, certainly $297. You understand what I'm saying? You have something within you, a gift, a talent, an ability. You assume that everybody knows what it is that you know. They don't. Matter of fact, the majority of the population don't. So when you show up and show out and share, all of a sudden people are going to say, how can I go deeper with you? What's it going to cost? Let's go to the next one. So you empower others with it. You nurture your growth. We talked about, educating yourself, but you begin to develop yourself. You become, first and foremost to yourself, but then to others, the go-to person that you've built upon in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. You're the expert. You've been doing this thing for the last 20 years. You know more about babysitting, caregiving, housekeeping, organizing, stop smoking, stop drinking. You've been doing this, going to AA for the last 15 years. People are struggling. You've learned certain skill sets. You hear what I'm saying? Everything. You've gotten out of an abusive relationship. You know what it takes to escape and to rebuild. You understand? The things that you were incarcerated. I've been watching this comedian lately. His name is Ali, and I think it's like Sadiq, but don't forget the last name. But his name is Ali. And Ali was incarcerated. He's taken his stories of incarceration and used it as elevation. Now he's getting paid, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps millions of dollars, sharing his story. Now, most people come out of incarceration and they walk around in shame. He told his story. Your story can liberate somebody. What's in your hands? Okay, so let's move forward. Nurture your gift. Take responsibility. This is going to rub some of you the wrong way. I'm just waiting on God. I'm waiting on the universe. Take some responsibility. God in you, divine in you, spirit, universe, infinite intelligence in you, as you, is the hope of glory. There's some tools that have been put in place. And again, I know that it sounds like I'm blaming somebody out there, but it's true. To keep you waiting on the hereafter, waiting to get yours, when Jesus comes back, when I can get on the streets of gold. And all the time, these people are profiting off of your existence. From the time that you're born, you get a barcode. Now, it's not a barcode of 666, it's a social security number. From that time that you're born to the time you die, you're a commodity. And you're working for somebody else your whole life. My only suggestion is, why not turn it around, flip it, and use it to your own benefit? Why not take your gifts, your talents, your abilities, and use it to profit you instead of profiting somebody else? One of the things that Rockefeller said when he was investing in the educational system, he said, listen, I don't want them to think. I want them to obey. And so from the time that we get in school, you got a question, as a kid, you at home and you just talk and you just ask the question. But in school, you're sitting for 8 hours. They condition when you can go to the bathroom. They condition when you go outside. You raise your hand when you want to talk. All of that's prepping you for the Rockefeller work system. And you work it 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Then you retire. Then you die. Then they replace you with somebody else. And the system goes on. This is how it's been designed. And they use education. They use government. They use religion. They use healthcare. They use all these mediums to keep you under their control. Now, you can write this off as a conspiracy theory and keep doing exactly what you're doing. Or you can take control of your own life, your own stewardship. Stop waiting on God out there and start listening to the God within and start taking action, doing what you've been called to do. I don't know what that thing is, but you know. You know what you've been called to do for the last 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you haven't taken action. You will be that steward that buried their talent in a gift, and the employer, infinite intelligence, will come back and say, what did you do with the gifts that I gave you? And you say, well, I knew you were harsh, and I knew that you were this and that, and I buried them in the ground. I was just waiting on you to come back. I was waiting on you to take me to glory and walk the streets of gold. You have within you, Mr. Lindo says, the power. You got the power of God in you as you. If you're living and breathing, you got God's Spirit in you. And only thing you have to begin doing is thinking of who it is that you want to be, do, or have. Embody who it is that you want to be, do, or have. Start living from who it is that you want to be, do, or have, and you'll start living the life that you had only once imagined. But you got to take responsibility. But lastly, and is the S. And the S stands for stay faithful. Because see, this is the hardest portion. People practice Neville Goddard and they say, well, I did Neville for 2 or 3 weeks and it didn't work. That stuff was a bunch of crap. Perseverance is the word. You got to persevere. If you say that you want to be a multimillionaire, if you say, Violet says stay focused, absolutely. If you say that you want to be in a loving relationship, if you say that you want to be in better health, or whatever else that you say that you want to do, you start occupying from the state. Neville called it living from the end. Then you persevere. You keep on until the thing that you desired is brought about, or until you change. When you do that, you're going to be the top 0.0001% of the population, because everybody else is not going to do this because they're going to say it's too hard. Not that them living in poverty, not that them living in poor health, not that them living in bad relationships or whatever the thing is that they don't want isn't hard enough, but improving their lives is too hard. Consistency, as Sam was just stating, it may take 10 years, and I'm glad that Sam brings that up. Colonel Haddon Sanders probably had his 7 herbs and spices probably for 50 years of his life. 65 years old, he gets his first Social Security check. He says, there's nowhere in the world I'm going to be able to live on this. And he starts franchising this idea. He gets thousands of no's till he gets his first yes. Once he gets his first yes, he starts building upon it and building upon it. He creates $1 million empire. Somebody buys it from him. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar empire. We call it KFC. What about you? Guys, if this is something that you've been called to do, and I say if it's in your spirit to do, it's because the seed resides in you to fulfill it. You do it until it's brought about or till you change your mind or till you die. But don't make it an option. You know, there's that story about, you know, the conquistadors and these different people, the Spaniards and so forth, when they found themselves on a particular continent of land, they would burn their ship because either they would occupy that land or they would die trying. There was an artist by the name of 50 Cent. His first album, one of his first albums was Get Rich or Die Trying. Today, most of us know Curtis Jackson. He's done movies and everything else. He got rich. This is not about money, though. It doesn't matter what your desire is. So don't think that the only measurement is money. But, and hear me out. If you're happy with the current condition of your life, don't change a thing. Keep thinking the way that you're thinking. Keep doing what you've always done. You'll keep getting what you've always gotten. But if you want something different, if you want to be something more, start with your thinking. Guys, I appreciate you for showing up. I love you. Thank you for the comments, Violet, Sam, and those Andrew and Steele. I didn't call Steele's whole name out, but I appreciate you. Love you. And until we speak next week, have a great and prosperous day. The notes will be pasted once I update everything. The notes will be pasted in the comments. And of course, you'll be able to get everything that was talked about. Some of you missed a portion of this, so go back and listen to it. Appreciate you, Violet. Appreciate you, Sam, Tara. Everybody came on, and even if I don't call your name, I appreciate you, love you. Talk to you next week. Cheers, mate.